At 12 minutes past 8, time for us to turn our attention to the Premier League this week here on OTB AM, and I'm delighted to say Mark Lawrenson is with us. Mark, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, thanks.
We have a title race. We're all very excited about this.
Yeah, what a result that is. I mean, Harry Kane, he's hardly played for the last 3 months, and he suddenly decides to play his best form on the day. They were good, Tottenham, but he was magnificent, wasn't he?
Was it a natural thing that after everything they went through in the summer that it was going to take him a time to get up to speed? Was it his motivation was gone when he thought that Nuno wasn't going to be a good manager? Was he not quite sure what he wanted himself? What's the explanation for the fact that he's back now?
Well, if we could all look inside his head, we'd probably know. I don't really know. I think one thing about it was obviously a massive game, and correct me if I'm wrong, haven't Tottenham had a relatively good record against City in the last few years? Certainly a lot better than most other teams. So maybe it just turned him on, City away, everyone writing Tottenham off, they can't do this, what's happened to Harry Kane, he hasn't scored for 4 games, yada, yada, yada. But I think a lot of praise must go down to the manager, Conte, because whatever they were going to do, they had a real go at Manchester City, and that just shows that that's probably the best way they can play. Because if you really seriously think about it, I mean, Son and Kane are outstanding footballers. So why wouldn't you try and create as many opportunities for the two of them and play in your opponent's half, because they will win your games, and that's exactly what they did on Saturday.
They actually really needed the points as well. That's if they're to have any hope of finishing in the top 4. And before that game, if we were all penciling in a routine 2-0 win for Man City, which I think most of the football world was, then they would have been 10 points behind Manchester United with a bunch of games in hand. Fair enough. But now all of a sudden, are they actually a good shout for finishing 4th?
They've just improved the chances. Don't forget, it's Tottenham, and they're a bit like Arsenal. They can be really, really flaky, both sides. They can play some outstanding football, win games, but then they go somewhere and get rolled over, and it's as though they hardly even turn up. So it's an excellent result. The only problem is you only get 3 points whatever you do, but it was just an outstanding performance. But I think it's still a little bit watch this space with both those two London clubs. They're very, very similar.
At the same time, over the weekend, Manchester United seem to have come somewhat out of their funk in remarkable circumstances against Leeds, where it looked like all of the flakiness that we have come to associate with Manchester United in recent seasons was on full display. It goes back to 2-2 and you're like, oh, what's going to happen here? But they did themselves out, and there's in-game changes from a manager who seems to know what he's doing, and it just, I don't know. You're like,
yeah. I mean, I was there Tuesday at Old Trafford, and they were average, to say the least. I mean, you probably won't remember. You're not old enough, but I remember this fixture where you'd have George Best against Paul Rooney, Bobby Charlton against Jack, Dennis Law against Bremner, and Nobby Stiles against Alan Clark. And I mean, it all kicked off literally. They'd be sending off. They'd be like topping each other, but the football would be fabulous. And this was a modern day sort of replay of the way that it used to be. But no, they were good, Manchester United. But look, the one thing about them is they just have real difficulty playing against teams who sit in, because they are very, very much a counter-attacking team. But against Leeds that you're always going to create opportunities, and the games are very, very open because you can't play any other way. And by the way, they're very, very poor at the back. And I know they had injuries and stuff, Leeds, but they're just one of the most open teams in the league in terms of scoring goals against them.
It was a proper old school game. Scott McTominay posted a photo on Instagram of his left ankle, and it was completely battered at the end of the game. Obviously, McTominay himself did a lot of battering, and
I was going to say. Yeah, I was a soppy sod. What are you doing that for? It's called football. It's what happens. What does he want?
I should say his caption was "Leeds away, proper game," football emoji. So he clearly embraced it.
Yeah, well, that's. I mean, and obviously there's that. It's hatred between the two clubs, as everybody knows. And I reckon every time he went out for a throw-in, if you're a Man United fan, the abuse he must have got would be amazing. But I have to tell you, playing in games like that is just fabulous. So so really good result for Man United. I'd say they got through on Tuesday night by the skin of their teeth. They were outplayed by Brighton, but they started to, it looks like with yesterday. But we don't know, do we? Because that's probably the first time they played what I would say 90 minutes rather than 45 minutes. So I don't know who they play next game, but it'll be interesting to see the performance.
Atletico. It's the two.
Well, yeah, I mean, I meant in the league. Yeah,
they've got actually Brentford and Watford, I think, next 2 games, if I'm right.
Oh, wow.
Watford, and then it's Watford next up on Saturday, and then it's the Manchester derby on Sunday week.
I missed the Brentford game.
Okay.
At the Etihad. So it's like, and like, I mean, it was yourself going through the fixtures. Then I think you've got
Liverpool,
Spurs and Liverpool as well in between, in and around the second leg of the Atletico game. So that is all happening between now and like this day next month. So really, those 6 fixtures, they define the season of Manchester United.
Yes, absolutely. And excuse me, I'm sure it's been a worry to the manager, to Ranić, which is, you know, go back to Tuesday in comparison to yesterday. And first half Tuesday, well, they never had the ball. That's the first thing. I mean, Brighton were really good at keeping the ball off them, but when they did get it, Manchester United, they kept giving it away. And there was that kind of thing at home. It felt like, you know, it was very, very strange for them to play at home. And when soon as somebody makes a mistake, I think Harry Maguire misplaced a pass, and it's like, ooh. And it can be difficult, that, because you really seriously got to convince the supporters that you're on it. But yesterday will do so. But as I say, we'll wait and see. And those fixtures are really, really interesting, obviously. So, and that, as you rightly say, will define their season. Atletico are having a poor run, aren't they? They get beat at home by Getafe or someone like that the other day, who are bottom of the league, aren't they, La Liga?
There's a really good opportunity for them to go through and build some confidence, and you know, this season could turn around for one of those teams that are going to finish 4th and think, yeah, we got out of jail there with a good squeak towards the end of the season. But any of them could go on a run of form at the moment, and you wouldn't be terribly surprised if at the end of the year we're looking back and going, oh, that was the moment that things changed for them. They put 5 good results back to back, and that was it. They qualified.
Yeah, definitely. But then I would say probably you can say the same about Arsenal, because they're a bit like that, aren't they? They have this, you know, they go out on a run and beat everybody as well. But as I say, that themselves and Tottenham are flaky. I've always said that I thought United would get there, just because they've got, however badly they play, they will always get opportunities. And of course, you've got the Ronaldo fella up front, but you've just got some really creative players and some match winners as well, apart from Ronaldo.
Who's the most flaky of those 3 clubs, Arsenal, Tottenham and Manchester United?
I would say Arsenal, because they always, since Wenger left, they've just been that way. I don't know what it is about them. I mean, when you consider the best of Arsenal's teams under Wenger, and you know, Vieira and Petit, and you know, all those guys, that the lads at the back, they were just completely different class to the team that they've got now, and that's in essence why they're flaky. They can be a very good side, and we've got some really good players, but I don't think mentally they're anything like as strong as that former. Well, the best team under Wenger, definitely.
Do you not think that? Like, I guess this was obviously a repeat of the opening weekend of the season, and that opening weekend of the season was a pretty grim one for Arsenal. And if you take that point and you take the point that they were at on Saturday, there is a notable upward graph, and that includes things like bottle and grit, and they are less flaky now than they were at the start of the season, and that's all you can really ask for, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. They've definitely improved, but they had a long way to improve, and they don't frighten you. That's the one thing when you play against Arsenal now, is that they don't frighten you as a team. You know, you can have a 20-minute spell where, you know, it could be untouchable, but they do not frighten you. It's the days of going to Arsenal and playing away when you think, crikey, if we get like a 2-0 defeat, happy days, get on the bus and go home. But it's not that anymore. And as I say, Tottenham are very, very similar. But Manchester United, I would think, out of the 3 would be the favourites to finish 4th. West Ham haven't got enough players, and I don't really see anybody else. Wolves are going well, but I think that's a massive ask for them as well.
Like, it does the constant leaks from the Manchester United dressing room worry you at all? I know that Manchester United have come out to say that none of the reports are true, and Rangnick says that yesterday's result was the best answer to those possible things, but you wouldn't be overly surprised if they don't get a positive result over the next couple of days, that the response in the papers will be reports inside the dressing room say that they're unhappy with Rangnick's methods, etc., etc.
Yeah, well, I think there are 2 points. I think when you get stories come out from the dressing room that are obviously, anti, if for want of a better description, nearly always from someone who's not in the team, who's disaffected and obviously just, tells his mate, or his mate rings somebody at newspapers or whatever, something like that. Results obviously change all that. But also the fact that, if there are some people in there who just look at the manager and think, I'm not really going to play, he doesn't really fancy me, it can make other people disaffected, because the other thing with it is that Rangnick's going, isn't he, in May, when, supposedly after the last game, and players will sit in there, and I'm afraid you have to bring money into it because it's part and parcel of it, and they're saying, well, he can't affect me, I'm not playing, he doesn't fancy me, but I've got a great contract, and I'll wait till the next fella comes in and try and prove to him that I'm in the team, which is completely wrong, as we all know. But that's the way that it is, and it just, I don't know. I don't know about the dressing room, but I don't think it's the best dressing room. And we always used to say at Liverpool, it's no good having 19 teas and 1 coffee. That you've got to have 20 teas. So if some are pulling in the opposite direction, but they're not really playing, they've got to deal with it. The problem is now at the moment, as a manager, you can't, unless he kind of knows roughly who it is and just says, right, cuts them off and says, right, you're training with the reserves. But I can't see him doing that.
Like, I guess that is probably one of the many issues that comes with having a bloated squad. Like, I guess we can sit here and say, Manchester United have cash to burn. They can, take punts on players here, there and everywhere. But in the end, those players who are sitting on the bench, or maybe not even making the bench, that are part of that bloated squad, are the ones who are going to be the problem.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's let Van der Beek go to Everton, hasn't he? Not saying that he was a problem, but Martial's gone, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Lingard obviously didn't let go, so he'll have had the hump, Lingard, but he started yesterday, didn't he?
Yeah. So,
he'll have had the hump as well, but I think the clever thing is, and, that's why Ferguson was so good in terms of keeping everybody together, apart from the fact they were an outstanding team, as we know, and they had some world-class players. But I think he was very much he might have left, he might have said to, I don't know, Fernandes yesterday, look, I'm leaving you out today because there's going to be a scrap, it's Leeds away and all those kind of ththings, but you're playing in midweek against Atletico. And I think that's something that he did. And I'm pretty sure that Klopp's a bit like that. And maybe even Pep, which is, you leave people out, but then you give them say you're going to play in midweek. So it softens the blow. And you just, instead of going away thinking the manager's an absolute tosser who doesn't know what they're doing, you think, well, I'm starting on Wednesday, which is, I think it's just a modern way at the moment.
You mentioned Liverpool there, and while there is a tendency after Manchester City lose any game to kind of look at what's going wrong for Manchester City or why they've slipped to make this a title race, that just isn't true in this case. It is Liverpool absolutely keeping the foot on the gas at the moment, ensuring that any slight blip within 90 minutes for Manchester City will get punished. They're flying at the moment, Mark.
Yeah, I was there, and I was at the game I was working on Saturday, and in all honesty, in the first 45 minutes they were ordinary.
Right.
And then you're kind of thinking, because he changed, I think he made 7 changes, Klopp. And then you're thinking, right, wonder if he'll change it at half time. But he stuck with it. But then he brought the cavalry on, which he kind of did in Milan midweek. I mean, me about raving about Thiago, but he just came on and changed the game. He just made it made it look ridiculously easy. And as you saw, the quality of the goals, but Norwich were decent and went for Liverpool on the counter-attack, and Liverpool were a little bit all over the place. But the thing about it, where are we? We're coming towards the end of February, and normally now in your squad, you've probably got 2 or 3 players who are out with kind of injuries, which might be, certainly not just a couple of weeks, but long-term injuries. Just looking at Liverpool, I think apart from Jota, who now actually saying even he might be available for the Carabao Cup at the weekend. But they've got everybody fit. Joe Gomez appeared and played right back. They've got everybody fit, which for a manager, this time of the year, after all the games they've played, is really, really unusual. So you've got now with Liverpool, which you probably didn't have for a while, everybody's fit. Everybody wants to play. And he's almost got two teams, which, as I say, for a football club at that level, it is amazing when you think about that.
You'd still make Manchester City favourites to win the title. Yeah. It's a 6-point gap. There's a game in hand. They still have to play each other as well. So while you make City favourites, it is there for Liverpool. It's in their own hands to a certain degree.
Well, they have to beat City away, we're all thinking. But I think that the thing is, it's always easier to chase. Always easier. It's when you're actually leading that it's the difficult thing, because you just need one or two to start thinking, they might catch us, those kind of things, and then performances dip. And basically, we just expect Liverpool and City to win every game, don't we?
Because in the past they've proven that they were capable of doing that. That's why this game against Spurs ends up being so important. Is there a blueprint? I know no other team has the collection of players that Spurs have that are actually perfectly built for a counter-attacking game like the one we've just seen with Son and Kane. I understand that, but is there a bit of a blueprint for other teams to look at and go, we've got some fast players who can actually interlink with each other quite well at the top end of the field?
Yeah, but have they got a Kane on majestic form?
No.
I would suggest no. And Son continues to be one of the most underrated players in the Premier League, and he's just so quick and such a clever player. So I don't see it. And I think, obviously, a lot of the teams, when they go to play City, obviously, straight away they're thinking, let's be really, really tight. Let's just sit in and let's stop them playing. But it's almost impossible. And also, they probably, against most teams, have 80% possession. And with the players that they've got, the creativity, etc., they will always make chances and obviously generally win the majority of the games. So I don't think there is a blueprint as such for the rest of the teams, unless it's a Liverpool when they go there, because they could certainly play the way that City did.
Just a couple of other things to touch on, Mark. I mean, you're talking about important runs and tough fixtures. If you look at Everton at the moment, obviously they're looking over their shoulder big time at the moment after the defeat at the weekend. Their next two fixtures in the Premier League are Manchester City and Tottenham. This is going to get more worrying before they start to get a sense of relief, right?
Yeah. Well, look, they've always, at the start of the season under Benitez, defensively, I know they had a good start first 5 or 6 games, but defensively, you look at them and they're all over the place. So understand what Frank Lampard has done with taking on Ali and Van der Beek, etc. But it's their Achilles heel is defensively. So you look at those two games that you just reeled off and you think, well, they won't get any points from that, and maybe one or two of the bottom clubs might get another victory and be sucking them in even more. I don't think they will get relegated, and one of the reasons is not because of Everton, but because generally down the bottom of the league, the teams that we're looking at will hardly win any games. I know, obviously, that Burnley won away at the weekend, which is a fabulous result for them, and Watford won. But you don't expect any of those two teams to go on a run. I think Norwich will go anyway. I mean, they started off, didn't they, just out the bottom three, and actually played well at Liverpool. And I don't know if they're rock bottom now, but they can't be far off.
Yeah, it's obviously Everton and Leeds would need to get dragged, and I think Newcastle's form at the moment probably suggests that they're going to go free.
Yeah.
It's just, and I totally agreed with you. I thought that the bottom three are ring fenced, they're gone down, the relegation battle is over, and then it's just that Burnley result at the weekend as well, which just gives you second thoughts.
And Watford.
I know Watford won as well, but Burnley, it seems, given that they've got a record of getting out of these situations, nothing as grim as this, admittedly, in the past, and the signing of Weghorst as well in January seems to have been relatively transformative. Well,
the only thing, and as good a result as it was for Burnley, you just look at them, they don't create many opportunities, do they? Yes, we know they're difficult to beat, and obviously that's shown by the table because of the number of games that they've drawn. I mean, they're still very hard to play against, but it doesn't really look like scoring. I didn't see any of the game, I presume. as well as Burnley played, Brighton had a hangover from the midweek game at Old Trafford. So I think that I've just said for a while that I think they'll go down this year, and I don't think behind the scenes at Burnley things are good. And I don't mean on the football side. We know about this this thing, the financial thing, where if they do get relegated, they have to pay off 60 million quid. I mean, how the hell are they going to do that? And I just get the impression that as good as the manager is, I think, you know, the people running the club, they've gambled, and it seems as though they borrowed all the money to buy the football club, which is unbelievably dangerous when it's somebody like Burnley who predominantly year on year struggle to stay in the league.
Just one last one, Mark, just on Chelsea. Had they not, well, I guess what the situation now, if you look at the table, is that if Arsenal win their 2 games in hand on Chelsea, they'll only be 2 points behind Chelsea. You can make a case that if things don't go well over the next little while, they could get dragged into making this 2 spots that are going to be open for Champions League football. But one thing that's inarguable after the weekend is Romelu Lukaku's performance on Saturday. 7 touches in the game against Crystal Palace. Since Opta started recording, no player who has played 90 minutes has recorded fewer touches. So they started recording in 2003. So in those 19 years, Romelu Lukaku's 7 touches is the lowest in the Premier League. It was a desperate performance in terms of not being involved, and Tuchel didn't exactly come out to defend him afterwards. He was speaking on BN Sports and he says, no, it's not about the system. And he was asked to elaborate about the performance of Lukaku, and he says, well, it is what it is. And it does seem that there was a little bit of beef that kind of came up between these 2 guys, obviously after his Sky Italia interview around Christmas time. That doesn't show any signs of dissipating. This is a real problem for Chelsea.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, if we're saying that he basically didn't try a leg, but you know, did anybody create any chances for him? That would be one of my replies. That, you know, whatever you think about these guys, they love scoring goals. So why wouldn't you want to score? And I did something the other day with some of your colleagues, and I just said, look, what about this? They were talking about, you know, Lukaku and they were talking about Kane, and I said, what about this swap in the summer? Lukaku goes to Tottenham, play with Conte again, and Kane goes to Chelsea. I mean, I don't think it'll ever happen because, you know, they hate each other, don't they, both clubs? But I was just looking at the way that, you know, the 2 strikers were playing, because before Saturday, Kane had been struggling, as we know, and you know, we could almost say the same thing about him, which was, you know, was he thinking about last summer, how he missed out, didn't go to City? Is he thinking about the summer coming up where he could possibly leave anyway at 29 and Tottenham could still get a fortune for him? But I thought, you know, the swap for the 2 would work for fun. But I think the thing with Lukaku, that he'll be gone in the summer, and Chelsea will obviously reinvest in terms of who they bring in.
Yeah, will there be a strong market for Lukaku after this again? Do people just write the season off? Yeah, people will take him. I don't think there's any doubt about that whatsoever. I mean, why he came out with that interview, I never ever know. I mean, we've had this for years where somebody would go and speak to, you know, like the French newspaper and think it would never ever get back, you know, which is in the world that we live in. It's ridiculous. And I really don't understand why he said what he did say. And the problem is that, you know, it's not as open anymore, which sounds ridiculous, where if you were left out of the team, you go and see the manager. You wouldn't go and see him straight away. So, you know, after the name the team, but you go and see him on Monday, you go and knock on his door, and he'd expect you to go in and just say, Gaffer, you know, what's the reasons why did you leave me out? And have a conversation with him. And if they're really clever managers, in the end, you'd kind of walk out the door and think, you know, absolutely believed everything that he said, and he was right in what he said. But they don't do it. They go to the agent and they start crying to their agent and all that. And then, you know, let's do a piece in one of the papers and we'll do it that way, which is it's absolutely ridiculous. The grown men just go and see the manager. And if you have a row with the manager, you have a row with the manager. And the thing about that is the manager thinks more about you thinking standing up for himself. And, you know, I'll give him another chance. It's absolutely, totally ridiculous, this thing. Mark, great stuff. Great to have you with us. Thanks a million.
Thank you. Cheers.